Here we go. All right, it says it's a recording this time. Last time I didn't get any recordings at all. So see if the live stream kicks in here. Yes, it is. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Roger Paul, and tonight we're going to continue our study on paper 133. This is part 2 on that series. And we're on page 1471, the third paragraph of the original book, or paper 133, section 2, paragraph 4 on all the rest of them. So forward this a little bit so that everyone can see the slide. Here we go. All right. We're ready to go here. All right, Diane, you want to take the first one, dear? Let me mute.
The journey to Nicopolis was pleasant but slow, as the wind was not favorable. The three spent many hours recounting their experiences in Rome and reminiscing about all that had happened to them since they first met in Jerusalem. Ganad was becoming imbued with the spirit of personal ministry. He began work on the steward of the ship, but on the second day, when he got into the deep religious water, he called on Joshua to help him out.
So he tried to be a teacher and
Independent,
independent and didn't do so well.
That's the way life is.
Had to be had to be rescued. All right, notice here it says the wind was not favorable. We forget back then the only way that boats moved was by wind power. You know, they had no motors or anything, unless you had oars. You know, you were if the wind stopped, you were stuck, and that's what they're talking about here.
We always kept oars in our boats.
Yeah, yeah. All right, let's go on to the next one. Let me take the second one here. They spent several days at Nicopolis, the city which Augustus had founded some 50 years before as the City of Victory, in commemoration of the Battle of Actium, this site being the land whereon he camped with his army before the battle. They lodged in the home of one Jeremy, a Greek proselyte of the Jewish faith, whom they had met on shipboard. The Apostle Paul spent all winter with the son of Jeremy in the same house in the course of his third missionary journey. I'm sorry, y'all, my eyes are blurry tonight. From Nicopolis, they sailed on the same boat for Corinth, the capital of the Roman province of Achaia. All right, let's move on. At Corinth, Pam, would you take Corinth, please? You're muted, Pam. Pam, you're muted.
Sorry.
That's all right.
3, at Corinth. By the time they reached Corinth, Ganid was becoming very much interested in the Jewish religion. And so it was not strange that one day, as they passed the synagogue and saw the people going in, he requested Jesus to take him to the service. That day, they heard a learned rabbi discourse on the destiny of Israel. And after the service, they met one Crispus, the chief ruler of the synagogue. Many times they went back to the synagogue services, but chiefly to meet Crispus. Ganid grew to be very fond of Crispus, his wife, and the family of 5 children. He much enjoyed observing how a Jew conducted his family life.
Okay, so this is one of the people that they met and spent time with. And this family just happened to be a Jewish family. And so he was very interested, being Joshua, or Jesus, was from the Jewish background. Okay, and this is a picture of Corinth. And if you notice over to the right, here's Italy, and here's Athens, right? Greece. And Corinth is right here. You know, we hear a lot about Corinth from the Bible, you know, when Paul and some of the apostles went there, the Corinthian church. So that's what that's about. Let me go down here to the some of the descriptions on these others down here. This is where the emperor started to convert this tract into a canal, but he did not finish the job when he started it. Wasn't finished for many, many ages later. And here's another picture of it. All right. And
Now, for where?
This is in Corinth.
Oh,
And this is some of the waterworks they were doing for Corinth, you know, to bring water into the city and waste out. So another interesting one coming up here, this one here, let me read what it has to say. This is where the Emperor Nero, who started this construction of the canal, left his own image here. The canal was not completed until the 19th century. And what they're talking about here is that you see this little area right here?
that's his mark.
That's his picture in there. Yeah, they made a little statue of him, you know.
Lord.
Even though the canal didn't get finished till the 19th century.
Very presumptuous.
Yes. And here's a little bit better picture of
Clay,
the next
clay.
one coming up. It's just right here.
Mm.
Let me see if I can make that a little bigger. See if you can see it a little bit bigger here. I don't know if I can or not. Let's see here. Okay, it's a little bit bigger, but not very much. All right, so this is his statue in here. See this? They made a little thing here for him to put his statue. Okay. Hey, Rodney.
Hey guys.
You want to take the next one?
Yes. Sorry I'm late. My computer decided to update.
Isn't that great?
6 a.m.
Yeah, it really does it right when you get ready to go in, and it wants to change out your whole program, so you can't even get online or anything until it's done.
It's frustrating.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. While Ganed studied family life, Jesus was teaching Crispus the better ways of religious living. Jesus held more than 20 sessions with this forward-looking Jew, and it is not surprising years afterward when Paul was preaching in this very synagogue that when the Jews had rejected his message and had voted to forbid his further preaching in the synagogue, and when he then went to the Gentiles, that Crispus with his entire family embraced the new religion, and that he became one of the chief supports of the Christian church, which Paul subsequently organized at Corinth.
And we hear about that in the New Testament.
Mm.
Excuse me. Notice here he spent more than 20 sessions with his family too, teaching them, right? So he's really preparing them for this coming. And it always amazes me from this paragraph, they talk about Jesus was forbid from preaching in the synagogue by this at a later point, right? And can you imagine? I mean, y'all think about this. I've been working on chapter 5 of my book on Jesus and talking about how Jesus is the ruler of our universe and the sovereign of our local universe. Can you imagine forbidding the ruler or the sovereign of the local universe from teaching in a synagogue on a planet in which he created?
Of course, they were ignorant.
They were ignorant, but just the thought of that just makes you cringe, doesn't it? I mean, just you think about such a thing. But that stuff went on. And this is a picture of the modern church in Corinth today.
Uh-huh.
They still have a church there today. All right. let's see, I'll start on this one. Darren, you can take the next one. During the 18 months, Paul preached in Corinth, being later joined by Silas and Timothy. He met many others who had been taught by the Jewish tutor of the son of an Indian merchant. So they heard about him later on, didn't they?
Mhm.
All right, dear, would you take the next one?
At Corinth, they met people of every race hailing from 3 continents. Next to Alexandria and Rome, it was the most cosmopolitan city of the Mediterranean Empire. There was much to attract one's attention in the city, and Gaiman never grew weary of visiting the citadel, which stood almost 2,000 feet above the sea. He also spent a great deal of his spare time about the synagogue and in the home of Crispus. He was at first shocked and later on charmed by the status of women in the Jewish home. It was a revelation to this young Indian.
Roger?
You got to remember that the Indian society did not treat women as poorly as the Bedouins and the Jews and that sort of thing. So he was really shocked that they treated the women so poorly. You know, being from India, they didn't do that, right? They were treated them more of an equal than they did. So, all right. Excuse me, Pam, would you take the next one?
Jesus and Ganid were often guests in another Jewish home, that of Justus, a devout merchant who lived alongside the synagogue. And many times subsequently, when the Apostle Paul sojourned in this home, did he listen to the recounting of these visits with the Indian lad and his Jewish tutor, while both Paul and Justus wondered whatever became of such a wise and brilliant Hebrew teacher.
They didn't realize that it was the same Jesus that they were talking about.
Yeah.
All right. Rodney, would you take the next one,
Okay. Thought this one would have been Carrie's.
please? No, he gets the one a little bigger. Next.
When in Rome, Ganid observed that Jesus refused to accompany them to the public baths. Several times afterward, the young man sought to induce Jesus further to express himself in regard to the relations of the sexes. Though he would answer the lad's questions, he never seemed disposed to discuss these subjects at great length. One evening, as they strolled about Corinth, out near where the wall of the citadel ran down to the sea, they were accosted by 2 public women. Ganid had imbibed the idea, and rightly, that Jesus was a man of high ideals, and that he abhorred anything which partook of uncleanliness or savored of evil. Accordingly, he spoke sharply to these women and rudely motioned them away. When Jesus saw this, he said to Ganid, "You mean well, but you should not presume thus to speak to the children of God, even though they chance to be his erring children. Who are we that we should sit in judgment on these women? Do you happen to know all of the circumstances which led them to resort to such methods of obtaining a livelihood? Stop here with me while we talk about these matters." The courtesans were astonished at what he said, even more than was Ganid.
So when this happened, the
Yeah.
courtesans were surprised too, right?
Yeah. The
Yeah,
truth.
the truth. Yeah. So they wanted to find out what he had to say also.
Yeah,
All
of
right.
course.
And let's go on and let Gary take this really short paragraph.
Uh,
You want me to speed to read it so it's short?
No.
Read quickly.
Okay.
They said
As they
the moonlight, and you just said it.
As they stood there in the moonlight, Jesus went on to say, there lives within every human a divine spirit, the gift of the Father in heaven. I'm referring to this
The courtesans.
Esther.
Yeah.
This good spirit ever thrives to lead us to God, to help us to find God and to know God. But also within mortals, there are many natural, physical tendencies which the Creator put there to serve the well-being of the individual and the race. Now, oftentimes, men and women become confused in their efforts to understand themselves and to grapple with the manifold difficulties of making a living in a world so largely dominated by selfishness and sin. I perceive, Ganed, that neither of these women's is willfully wicked. I can tell by their faces that they have experienced much sorrow. They have suffered much at the hands of an apparently cruel fate. They have not intentionally chosen this sort of life. In discouragement bordering on despair, surrendered to the pressures of the hour and accepted this distasteful means of attaining a livelihood as the best way out of a situation that to them appeared hopeless. Ganid, some people are really wicked at heart. They deliberately choose to do mean things. But tell me, as you look into these now tearful, stained faces, do you see anything more or bad or wicked? And Jesus paused for his reply. Ganad's voice choked up as he stammered out his answer. No, teacher, I do not. And I apologize for my rudeness to them. I crave their forgiveness. Then said Jesus, and I bespeak for them that they have forgiven you as I speak for my Father in heaven, that he has forgiven them. Now, all of you come with me to a friend's house where we will seek refreshment and plan for the new and better life ahead. Up to this time, the amazed women had not uttered a word. They looked at each other and silently followed as the man led the way.
There is so much in this paragraph. I could
Really?
preach a sermon on this. I really could. But let's hit a couple highlights here. First of all, Jesus talks about the tendencies of men and women struggling through life, trying to make a living, trying to feed themselves, trying to feed their family. And sometimes their sexual tendencies get out of hand because they find that they can use their sexuality to augment making this living and struggling through this horrible, horrible way we all have to survive. I mean, it's really difficult. And having the fact that Jesus himself has had to go through these struggles as a normal human, he can relate to everything that's happened to them. He had to feed his family of seven, and he had to take care of his own children and barely got by in some periods of time. And that's part of the experience of living. And so what he's trying to teach this lad, Ganid, is the fact that life is not easy. Life is very, very hard. And sometimes we resort to things distasteful or things we really don't want to do just to survive. And that's what he's talking about with these women. So what he's going to try to do, we're going to find out in the next paragraph or so, is change the course of these two women. So let's go on to the next one. And
Can I say something?
Yes, go right ahead.
There's a statement in there that says, let me go back and read well, in discouragement, they have not intentionally chosen this sort of life. They have in discouragement bordering on despair surrendered to the best way out of a situation to them appeared hopeless, which suggests to me that it wasn't hopeless.
No, it wasn't hopeless, but we all get in situations where, excuse me, we feel like our situation in life is hopeless. Okay. And especially when it comes to finances, it's very, very hard to survive in this world. If you don't, we go through this each and every month, me and Diane, with our finances and stuff. I'm juggling stuff. You would think I was a magician. I juggle stuff around so much just to keep the utilities on and survive. Just because we teach religious things doesn't mean we don't have any. That doesn't mean we have any money coming in other than my VA disability and our Social Security. And being the fact that we take care of so many animals and everything, we had to make a choice. Are we going to feed our animals? Or are we going to eat less? And we have made choices to eat less. You would be amazed what I come up with for meals. You can ask Diane. I mean,
It's very creative.
Yeah, I have to be creative quite a lot. I've ate.
Is it Mexican tortillas and beans?
No, I eat my weight in hot dogs and things like that. Just because we're out here working on, I spend 10 to 12 hours a day just working on this religious work because it needs to be done. And I want to get it to a point that when I pass, the message that Jesus has laid upon me has been told, and it's been told sufficiently. Yeah. And that's why I work at the different stuff so much. It's part of my job, but there's no pay coming in for it. And honest to God, if Diane was not healthy enough to do most of the work for the animals and stuff, that it wouldn't get done. Any extra time I have is cleaning the house and that sort of thing and cooking. And so she pretty much takes care of everything else. I mean, she has to, because we have to make a decision. What is most important in life? And in my life, what the most important thing is my work for God, right?
Yeah.
But you make that decision, just like in this paragraph when they said these women, were at a point of despair. I've been at a point of despair in my life many, many times over. Just because we live a religious life does not erase the possibility that you're not going to struggle through life. All of us do, right?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
What lesson was God trying to teach you during your eras of despair?
I think God was trying to teach me to be patient with everything. Let me put it, I don't want to complain, but look at it this way. I spent all my life in school studying to go into religion. Then I ended up going into medicine. I got 3 doctorates and that sort of thing. And I never made enough money to be wealthy by any stretch of the imagination. Okay. Because I was honest in everything I did. So even when I was in practice, probably half of the fees that I charged, I wrote off. Okay. Because people couldn't afford it. Insurance wouldn't pay, people couldn't afford it. And half the time, if it was an auto accident or something like that, the attorneys keep the money, won't pay you. And there's nothing you can do. You can take them to court, but Jesus says, don't take your fellow man to court. Did you know that?
No.
So you have to make a decision whether you're willing to give up any kind of wealth and that sort of thing to do what's right in your life. And it's hard. There's nothing easy about it. But coming back to these ladies, they got to a point where they obviously could not feed themselves. Okay, so at that point, what do? Do you give in a little bit so that you can feed yourself and keep surviving? That's basically what they had to do. And in each and every, my point is this, in each and every one of our lives, no matter how you pre-plan and put your time in and do all these things, that does not mean you're going to have a wealthy life or be better off than anyone else. Okay? It just doesn't mean that. If you get into the streams of wealth, there's certain streams of wealth that you can get yourself into, and you can get very, very wealthy very, very fast. Or if you get lucky and come up with a product or something like that, that you can sell and make a lot of money. And it happens all the time. But that does not necessarily mean it's going to always happen. Like, for instance, if I would, instead of going into medicine, if I would have gone into, let's say, real estate or something like that and put as much time as I did learning in real estate as I did medicine and the other things, I went through chiropractic school, I went through sports medicine, I went through x-ray technology. I spent a whole year doing video fluoroscopies in the back of a truck. Okay, so there's lots of ways you can spend your time. But if I'd have spent that much time in something like real estate, I'd have been a very wealthy man at this point,
Yeah.
But there's a lesson to learn. If you look at the wealthy people of the world, and you will find that a lot of them in 10 years are no longer the wealthiest people in the world. So that wealth is fleeting. I'll give an example. Look at a lot of these Hollywood, you would seem they're well off.
Yeah.
And I was surprised to know that the guy that plays Fonz, I forgot his name.
Plays what?
He played Fonz in Happy Days.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Winkler.
Yeah,
Henry Winkler. Yeah.
Yeah, he had several $1 million and he lost it in an investment. And what I understood from this video, I'm better off than him.
Oh
And
yeah.
I didn't make no several $1 million.
It's easy for that to happen too. And then the thing of it is, Gary, is this: at some time in your life, you have to make the decision whether you're going to live a life and have a profession of service or have a profession of money. Okay. So if you choose the service row, you will be rewarded great, great amounts of personal satisfaction in knowing that you did the right thing. Okay. But if you choose the road of money, it might boost you up for a few years. But unfortunately, most of the people that get into that end up losing it or doing something else in which it all falls in on them. And that's apparent with probably 80% of the stars we see on TV. By the time they get 70 or 80, they have lost their fortunes. Many of them get thrown out on the street, they lose their houses and all this. So it's all relative. When I made my decision, I thought about it very hard because my life was going to be a world of service. It was going to be as a Baptist preacher. But since that didn't work out, I had to choose another service profession for a while that could feed me. And that's why I went into medicine, chiropractic and medicine and sports medicine and x-ray and that sort of thing. And none of them I made that much money at. I got by, I paid my bills, but I did not become wealthy by any stretch of the imagination. And people think doctors always become wealthy. Yeah, certain doctors do who become surgeons and things like that. Sometimes they become wealthy, but the average doctor does not make that much money. I guarantee y'all. It's high expense to keep an office open, pay people to be there, in the 9 yards. And we're getting too far off on my life and forgetting this.
Well, let me give you this one thing and I'll shut up. I had a friend who's even though we never met each other until we were in our 70s, had somewhat parallel lives, occupation-wise, etc. I got married, raised a family, etc. He did not. He played the field.
Yeah.
Okay. He had a hell of a lot more money than I did. He was very well off, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And he was a nice, generous guy. And one day we were discussing things about things we had to do in our life, selling and, financial stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, how do you deal with your conscience? He says, I was one of these people that if the company said to do this and I thought it was wrong, I didn't do it.
Yeah.
Oh,
He says, so I says, I don't have any guilty conscience. He says, boy, I wish I could have said that.
Yeah.
Huh.
So
Yeah.
that, you know, he had to carry that all the way to his grave. So maybe that will help you, Roger.
Yeah, I don't feel like I need any help with it because I made the choices and I pay for my choice. I say it all the time. We never get away from our sins of the world, right? We make decisions and then we pay the price, and I feel fortunate I have been able to spread the truth of God to so many thousands and thousands of people. And I'm not a preacher that asks for money and that sort of thing. So I don't, I've never gotten wealthy from it, but I have benefited. I know I have benefited thousands and thousands of people because they've discovered the truth of the Urantia book. And without my big mouth, I don't know if they would have as they did. Right. So it is what it is. It all works out. You pay for your sins and you keep going and you benefit from the things that you dedicate your life to. And I've benefited greatly. I feel more fortunate than 99.9% of humanity, to be honest. So, okay, let's go on to the next one. Gary, were you up?
no,
I'll read it again if you want.
No, that's
No.
all
A
right.
little bit late. I
I'm up. Am
understand.
I up again?
I
no, I
must be
think I'm
tempted.
up.
Oh, are you?
Who was
Okay.
the one before?
Yeah, you're after Diane. So if
Yeah.
Gary just read, I should be up again.
Oh,
Oh, okay. Now I just went.
He made a shorter paragraph, people. Did you all notice
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Uh,
Imagine the surprise of Justice's wife when at this late hour Jesus appeared with Ganid and these two strangers saying, "Will you forgive us for coming at this hour? But Ganid and I desire a bite to eat and would share it with these our newfound friends who are also in need of nourishment. And besides all this, we come to you with the thought that you will be interested in counseling with us as to the best way to help these women get a new start in life. They can tell you their story, but I surmise they have had much trouble, and their very presence here in your home testifies how earnestly they crave to know good people and how willingly they will embrace the opportunity to show all the world and even the angels of heaven what brave and noble women they can be." Now, can you imagine this woman? She must have been startled
yeah,
to all get
just
out.
imagine.
Yeah. Diane, would you take the next?
When Martha, Justice's wife, had spread the food on the table, Jesus, taking unexpected leave of them, said, "As it is getting late, and since the young man's father will be awaiting us, we pray to be excused while we leave you here together, 3 women, the beloved children of the Most High. And I will pray for your spiritual guidance while you make the plans for a new and better life on earth and eternal life in the great beyond."
You notice how he slid out on them?
Yeah,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the woman had to, Justice's wife had to, come up to the plate, didn't she? I mean, she didn't have much of a choice. All right. Okay, here. Pam, I think you're up next.
Thus
Yeah.
did Jesus and Ganid take leave of the women. So far, the 2 courtesans had said nothing. Likewise was Ganid speechless, and for a few moments, so was Martha, but presently she rose to the occasion and did everything for these strangers that Jesus had hoped for. The elder of these 2 women, died a short time thereafter, with bright hopes of eternal survival. And the younger woman worked at Justice's place for business and later became a lifelong member of the first Christian church of Corinth.
So they got out of that life just like Jesus had set it up,
Yeah,
didn't they?
isn't that wonderful?
That's
Wow.
what a wonderful story, you know.
That's pretty.
Yeah, I forget where this is. This is in Corinth, also in the church there. I have a whole bunch of pictures of this church, Corinth. They're kind of nice. You can look at these in the slides at your leisure, but what a beautiful church, right?
Yeah.
And these are the different apostles and stuff in the around the sides of the church inside. And there's Jesus calming the sea. Here's the 12 apostles.
Yeah.
Must be a beautiful church. And here's a battle helmet from Corinthian helmet from that period of time. Here's a bronze. This is 500 BC. And this is something that Pam wouldn't know anything about.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I wish I could make it. Those kind of shapes are very difficult.
Difficult to make, huh?
Oh yeah.
Okay, here's a Corinthian pier capital.
Whoa. So they talk about Corinthian and Doric, and there's some other one.
So that's what they look like. Now y'all have been enlightened about the art of Corinthian. Okay, Rodney, would you take the next one, please?
Yes. Several times in the home of Crispus, Jesus and Ganid met one Gaius, who subsequently became a loyal supporter of Paul. During these 2 months in Corinth, they held intimate conversations with scores of worthwhile individuals. And as a result of all these apparently casual contacts, more than half of the individuals so affected became members of the subsequent Christian community.
So they laid the groundwork, didn't they?
Foundation.
Yeah, they did. I wonder if Crispus had Krispy Kremes.
Bought stock.
Need to be a K.
Yeah, I think so. All right, Gary, you're up again.
Okay, when Paul first went to Corinth,
That's right. Yeah.
He had not intended to make a prolonged visit, but he did not know how well the Jewish tutor had prepared the way for his labors. And further, he discovered with that great interest and had already been aroused by Aquila. That's right. Aquila and
Priscilla.
Priscilla. Aquila being one of cynics, one of the cynics with whom Jesus had come in contact when in Rome. This couple were Jewish refugees from Rome, and they quickly embraced Paul's teachings. He lived with them and worked with them, for they were also tent makers. It was because of these circumstances that Paul prolonged his stay in Corinth.
And we know that Paul was a tent maker for a long, long time. So he fit right in with them, right?
Paul, now are they talking about the Paul that came later that Jesus converted on the road to Damascus?
Yeah, Paul the Apostle, right.
Okay.
Yeah. If it wasn't for the sacrificial lamb doctrine, Paul could have done more for Christianity than any other person. He just about did anyway, right? I mean, for 2,000 years, he still got people believing that Jesus died for their sins, But if it wasn't for that one point, Paul's work would have been tremendous. And the fact that Paul didn't like women very much. So that was obvious from the Bible.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Paul was not a fan of women whatsoever. He was your typical Jew. He thought they belonged at home and to keep their mouth shut, right? And that was about it. So, all right. 4, personal work in Corinth. Jesus and Ganid had many more interesting experiences in Corinth Corinth, they had close converse with a great number of persons who greatly profited by the instruction received from Jesus, because Jesus taught everywhere he went, right? Diane?
Mhm.
The miller, he talked about grinding up the grains of truth in the mill of living experience so as to render the difficult things of divine life readily receivable by even the weak and the feeble among one's fellow mortals. Said Jesus, give the milk of truth to those who are babes in spiritual perception. In your living and loving ministry, serve spiritual food in attractive form and suited to the capacity of receptivity of each of their inquirers.
You're muted, Roger.
So each person you teach gets a different message, don't they? Because the message for them is going to be different than it is for someone else. Okay, so that's the way it works. Pam, would you take the next one, please?
To the Roman centurion, he said, render unto Caesar the things which are Caesar's, and unto God the things which are God's. The sincere service of God and the loyal service of Caesar do not conflict unless Caesar should presume to arrogate to himself that homage which alone can be claimed by deity. Loyalty to God, if you should come to know him, would render you all the more loyal and faithful in your devotion to a worthy emperor.
And we know that most of the emperors tried to elevate themselves to God status, didn't they? And it was a really
Mhm.
bad part of the Roman culture. All right, Rodney.
To the earnest leader of the Mithraic cult, he said, you do well to seek for a religion of eternal salvation, but you err to go in quest of such a glorious truth among man-made mysteries and human philosophies. Know you not that the mysteries of eternal salvation dwells within your own soul? Do you not know that the God of heaven has sent his Spirit to live within you, and that this Spirit will lead all truth-loving and God-serving mortals out of this life and through the portals of death up to the eternal heights of light, where God waits to receive his children. And never forget, you who know God are the sons of God, if you truly yearn to be like him.
Okay, so a couple things in this paragraph that's really important. First of all, he talks about man-made mysteries and human philosophies. What's he talking about there? That's these things that human beings come in up for worship, like the sacrificial lamb concept or all the rules of the Jewish faith. These are man-made things and human philosophies. They are not directly from God. And so then he goes on to tell us that the real mystery for salvation dwells within you. And what is that? That's the thought adjuster. Okay? So the thought adjuster is what brings you back to God. It grows your soul so that when you go on to the mansion world, you're prepared to start as a new Morancha existence, and then you're ready to go on your ascension plan. So all you need, you come into life, all you need is already with you when you get that thought adjuster. And before
Roger?
that, yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And before that, you're watched over by the guardian angel corps, right? All right, go ahead, Rodney.
Well, where Jesus is speaking here, about halfway through, and he says, do you not know that the God of heaven has sent his Spirit to live within you?
Dwell within you, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the rest of it, This is actually what Jesus taught us
Yeah.
during his ministry. It all revolved around this.
It's all about the thought adjuster, isn't it?
Yeah.
Doing the will of God. It always comes back to that. You know, it's funny. All the religious text and everything people keep preaching and all this, they miss the point of Jesus's mission, the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man. And everything Jesus taught is this same message, is it not? The fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man, and the fact that God lives within you and loves you from within, and all the other influences are from without, right? Spirit of truth, the Holy Spirit, all these, the adjunct mind spirit, these are all external influences, but your main influence is the thought adjuster, which is within. And if you dedicate your life to doing the will of God, you're going to go from within to without, right? Because the will of God is within, everything else is without, and everything else will fall in line if you do the will of God, right? You can't do the will of God and not accept your brothers and sisters. That's part of it. Why? Because we're all of the same family. Same old message over and over again, right? All right, Gary, would you take the next one?
Okay, to the Epicurean, is that pronounced right?
That's correct.
How about that? I'll take a bow. To the Epicurean teacher, he said, "You do well to choose the best and esteem the good, but are you wise when you fail to discern the greater things of mortal life, which are embodied in the spiritual realms derived from the realization of the presence of God in the human heart? The great thing in all human experience is the realization of knowing that God, whose spirit lives within you, and seeks to lead you forth on that long and almost endless journey of attaining the personal presence of our common Father, the God of all creation, the Lord of universes."
Okay, now remember when we went on this long journey I had tonight from telling you about why I chose to do a spiritual life instead of a money life? This is exactly what they're talking about right here. Because if you fail to discern the greater things of mortal life, what are the greater things of mortal life?
I think it's doing right.
Spiritual life.
Spiritual life. That's right. You're all three right. Doing right, living a spiritual life, and concentrating your life on the spiritual, not the material. The material you don't take with you, the spiritual you do. All these things that you do in this life for material gain are in essence useless. What? That's exactly right. It's useless. You don't take a single thing with you. Nothing. You leave here just like you came. Right.
I've got one other one for you, and you can do it on your own. You look at these wealthy people that have great material wealth, but if you get to know them, they're very lonely people.
Empty, right?
Don't have they're not happy.
No. Mm-mm. And if you look at it, when y'all watch TV at night and you see all these things on YouTube and all the other things now, and there's not much on the networks, but anything that is on there has to do with two things: money and thrills, right? So it's kind of funny that if you get on YouTube, most all the things you see are thrill seekers. Okay, people that want to see things funny, people running into each other and having accidents and doing things wrong. And that's all tied up. They make lots of money on YouTube because people will click on that because that's what they're interested in. Okay, so they make lots of money on YouTube. It's all related to the same problem. These things are not important spiritually, and making the money is not important spiritually. So look at all the programs you watch that's surrounded by the fact that people are going to make money on this or that, the other, or they're making money on the program, right? Very few things you watch anymore has a good story, does it? Remember when we were growing up? I know I'm probably older than everybody else,
Yeah,
but
in the 60s.
yeah, in the 60s, most of the stories that were on TV had some kind of moral story to
Yeah,
it, didn't it?
yeah.
Had some kind of message. And that's getting less and less and less and less because everything is money, 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 or to make you laugh or give you thrills, one of the two, right? So we're not going down the right spiritual path, are we? And we're supposed to be growing spiritually for our experience in this mortal world. So we need to reevaluate what we consider as important, right? And to do that, what do? We follow that thought adjuster within us, and it will lead us down the spiritual path rather than all these others. Okay, now I have lost track of who's up next.
I think I just read, so
Oh, I'm up then. To the Greek contractor and builder, he said, "My friend, as you build the material structures of man, grow a spiritual character in the similitude of the divine spirit within your soul. Don't let your achievement as a temporal builder outrun your attainment as a spiritual son of the kingdom of heaven." What were we just talking about?
Yeah.
While you build the mansions of time for another, neglect not to secure your title to the mansions of eternity for yourself. And how do you do that? You build your spiritual life. Ever remember, there is a city whose foundations are righteousness and truth, and whose builder and maker is God. And that's where we're going, right? That's our future.
wonder if they have them in yellow.
Huh?
Nothing. I'm just being a smart son of a gun.
Okay. Those are the words of Jesus. Let's do one more before we quit tonight. Diane?
To the Roman judge, he said, "As you judge men, remember that you yourself will also someday come to judgment before the bar of the rulers of the universe. Judge justly, even mercifully, even as you shall someday thus crave merciful consideration at the hands of a supreme arbiter. Judge as you would be judged under similar circumstances, thus being guided by the spirit of the law as well as by its letter. And even as you accord justice, dominated by fairness in the light of the need of those who are brought before you, so shall you have the right to expect justice tempered by mercy when you sometime stand before the judge of all the earth."
They should put this on the desk of every single judge in the country, right?
That's true.
They really should. All right, let's stop right there, and we'll take it up next time from the next one, which will be 4:8. Okay, let me stop the share, and we're gonna swap out to a new share. Okay, prayer of acceptance.
I will volunteer if nobody else wants to read.
Oh, well, go ahead, Gary, if you'd like to. Go right ahead and read.
Prayer of acceptance. I believe that God is my paradise Father, and that only by faith am I saved. No sacrifice is necessary. By this same faith, I became a child of God and know that all men and women are my brothers and sisters. We know the Son of God, the sovereign of our universe of Nebanon, as Christ Michael, Jesus of Nazareth. By allowing the will of God to become my will, I will someday stand in the presence of the Paradise Father. In the name of Christ Michael, Jesus of Nazareth, amen.
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 And thank you all for joining us tonight. Please come see us again. Check out our other videos on YouTube. Subscribe, and all that stuff. Give us a thumbs up. Make us feel important.
Can I ask you a question, Roger?
Sure, go right ahead.
How can you turn out books so fast?
I'm a
I'm
smart man.
amazed. You've turned out two books in the last 2 months.
I have all the preliminary stuff done, Gary, from teaching classes for so many years. You know, the second book I'm basing on the 20-week class we had on Jesus, who, where, what, and when. Yeah. I'm basing the second book on that, and I've already done the classes. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the classes and writing the chapters from the classes.
So the book I'm reading now is your second book.
The book you're reading now is the first book. Okay. The one on God, who is God.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first book. And that is based on the 26-week class of the origins and history of universe destiny, of deity of universe destiny. That was the 26-week class we spent two times through. The first one back in 2013 and this, or 11 one, I can't remember. And the second time we did it last year. And when we were going through it again last year, I thought, well, these lessons would make a great book. And that's how that book came about. And if you read through that book, it's a little different than the way I taught the classes, but the basis of the book is from the information from each class. And all I have to do is take the information and rewrite it and rewrite it and rewrite it until it sounds like a nice chapter.
Yeah.
And then put it together. It's the easiest way to do it. And we tried this, actually, Pam remembers, and Jane probably remembers, that we tried to do this as we was going through it, but with all the other stuff that I was putting in there saying right over and over and over again, it was hard to determine what the true message is all the way through it. So it's something I had to do myself. Nobody else could do for me. So when I went back through it and rewrote it myself from my own thoughts, then I could organize them better, and that's how the book came about. So, but if you read the chapters, the information is the same information in each one of the lessons individually. And the book on Jesus is going to be the same way. It's the same information on the 20-week course on Jesus, who, and what, when, and where. And it's coming out really well because I'm doing 2 podcasts for each chapter on the Jesus book. One I write as a 2-person podcast, people asking questions back and forth. And the second one is more like a lecture from myself. So it breaks down the information 2 different ways so that it appeals to different types of people, but the information is the same information I taught during the classes. Does that make sense?
How's the book selling going? Anything?
I don't know. I don't think it's selling all that well. I've been putting the link on the end of some of the new videos and stuff, so it might increase over time. I don't know. It's hard to say because it's hard to determine how many people are going to be interested in a book about the theology of God. And that's really what the first book is about. It's about, God the Father, God the Son, God the Spirit, and the breakdown of the 7 absolutes and that sort of thing. And excuse me, unless it's something you're interested in and want to spiritually grow, you wouldn't buy a book like that, right? I mean, it's not a story or a novel of somebody doing something that's not real. This is all real stuff. And some people have an inkling for religion and philosophy, and some people don't. So I don't expect to make a lot of money on it or anything else, because the way it's printed, it's very expensive to print and color like I did. And so the profit on the book is very minimal. I'd be better off going on down to the corner with a little can, but will work for food. But I think the Jesus book is going to do much better. I really do, because people are more interested in Jesus than religion and philosophy, that sort of thing. So we'll see.
Thanks to the Christian church, they've promoted Jesus pretty well.
Yeah, they really have. I mean, it's been promoted for years. The interesting part about the Jesus papers too, or the Jesus book I'm working on, is it goes into great detail of his background and the local universe, mother spirit, the the 7 adjunct mind spirits. It breaks everything down in great detail. So if you get all the way through the Jesus book, you will have a well-rounded idea of Jesus, who he was and his mission and everything. So we'll see how that works out. Y'all will see it coming. It's going to take this one's going to take a little longer than the last one because I'm breaking it down in 2 different sort of ways. I have to think my brain through doing a podcast that's 2 people, right? Setting it up for a podcast for 2 people. And then the second one I'm doing as just like a lecture of the chapter of the book. So it's just me. So, but I want to get everyone the opportunity to get the information in every way I know possible and have a good understanding of Jesus, right?
You may need a makeup artist. I'm just joking with you. I'm just joking with you.
By the time I get done, it'll take me probably the rest of the year. I'm thinking to finish the second book. So, but I think it'll be worth it when it's all said and done. Of course, I may be on my way out by then, so we'll see. I don't know. You're still kicking pretty good at 80, Gary.
Don't push it. I've got another 3 months.
All right, y'all. I love you guys. And
Thank you, Roger.
you're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Love you guys.
We'll see you next time. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay.